All right, so welcome. We're really happy you're here. My name is Melissa Steffens. I am a disability access advisor in the Academic Support and Access Center. Sometimes the acronyms you'll hear are DAA, which is Disability Access Advisor, and you'll hear ASAC, which is the Academic Support and Access Center. On that note, here is my wonderful colleague. Take it away.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Little. I'm also a disability access advisor here in the ASAC with Melissa. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us.
All right, next slide, please. All right, thank you. Thank you. So while our agenda looks very tiny, it is mighty. And we are basically going to go over today how to request accommodations. We're here because we really want to support your ability to make that request. And so that is our primary focus. And then, as I mentioned before, which some folks might have heard, we will at the end answer any questions you have. We're really happy to do so. Feel free to take time to think through what you can ask us. We only suggest that you ask us very general questions about the process, and then anything that's a more specific or personal question, go ahead and reach out to our office and we can work with you more directly on that. And we'll give you all of our information for the office, etc. So that's where we're going with our presentation today. Next slide, please. Thank you. So basically, this is a very quick rundown of how to request accommodations through our office. It's a three-step process. It's meant to be very interactive because obviously we want to hear from students, to understand what you experience in order to determine what accommodations will be most helpful to you. So these three steps are listed here. You will first initiate a request by going to our website, which we'll show you and we'll provide it here on the PowerPoint. But you'll go and you'll complete a student accommodations questionnaire. And that is what we call or refer to as an SAQ. Basically, you're painting a picture for us through this in terms of what your disability is, what the diagnoses are, the current diagnoses, what accommodations you may have had in the past, what accommodations you're currently requesting. And it's okay if you don't know, you can just say, I don't know, but I'm requesting academic accommodations. And then once you've completed that questionnaire, you can at the same time submit your documentation in support of your request, or you can submit just the SAQ and then go back and submit clinical documentation that supports your request for accommodations. Now, we will go through the documentation requirements because they do exist. They are on our website. Basically the documentation guidelines are, well, we'll go into more detail then. I basically though want to say that the first two steps are very important for us to have. Before we can reach out to you, we need the SAQ, or that first step, and we need the documentation. Without either of those, we will be waiting for the other in order to reach out to you. So it's important, really imperative, that you complete both of those steps. And if you need help any point in that, along that way, then just reach out to us and we'll support you. We'll answer your questions. In order to get to that third step, as I mentioned, you need those first two. And the third step is that, a student, once that's been submitted, a student is assigned to a DAA. And then the DAA will review the documentation, will review your request, then they'll reach out to you either with further questions or most likely for an intake appointment. And you'll typically receive an email to your AU email inbox. So make sure you monitor it, and it would be inviting you to schedule or asking further questions. But either way, the important point here is to monitor your AU inbox. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is a picture of our website. We put a screenshot up there. Don't worry about squinting to read the priority deadlines. These are from a few years ago, so you'll be able to go directly to our website. to get the updated priority deadlines. But take a look at what is listed here. The 3-step process are those 3 giant maroon circles with numbers in them. That number 1 is where you can submit your student accommodations questionnaire. You can even just look at it and see, take your time to sort of figure out the questions, what your responses are. No pressure there. Just make sure that you submit all of the information that's being asked. And then I think it's important for us to look at the documentation guidelines. So the next slide is if you scroll down. So scrolling down from the top of this page, boom, right there, you will have the documentation guidelines. And they are, if you click on that plus sign on the right-hand side, that'll expand the box and it'll show you all the documentation guidelines that we have. Before we get to that slide though, I just want to note that we have other sort of conditions and topics on this page, as you can obviously see. Really, it's like, for example, temporary injuries and conditions. Let's hope this doesn't happen, but let's say you are a student athlete and you get a concussion, unfortunately, or you're like me, and last year I was a klutz and I'm from LA and slipped on some black ice, got a concussion. You can let us know if that impacts you in the academic setting. We will work with you on supports while you're healing. So just know that it's more than just full academic accommodations. We're here to support you if we can. We also have, as you see here, guidance for housing, dining, animals on campus, and most likely you all already took the bath placement test. But let's go back to documentation guidelines. So next slide, please. Thank you. So this is if you expand that box. And really you're looking at, a bunch of different forms and trying to figure out what you need to submit. There is guidance there, just take your time to read through it. So for example, if we look at the bottom here, it says, which form do I submit, where the red arrow is. And you look below that, there are only a few examples, but if you scroll, obviously you'll be able to see everything, every category. So there are psychological disabilities, or right here it says severe and chronic medical conditions. So when you click on those blue underlined links, it'll take you directly to the fillable form. It's a documentation guidelines, but it's a fillable form for the provider who currently treats you for your diagnosis. And so make sure that you read through those. I just want to stress that because our determinations are based off of this, and we will a lot of times get IEPs, which are certainly helpful, but the primary documentation, you should really look to these guidelines to know what we look for in documentation. It answers a ton of questions, so absolutely take some time to look through there. Let us know if you have questions after reading through. We're happy to work with you on that. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Melissa. So I am just going to piggyback with a few more details on some of the points Melissa brought up on steps 2 and 3 of the 3-step process. So in step 2 with the clinical documentation, if you do not have access to it or you don't have the documentation while completing the student accommodations questionnaire, you can email that directly to the ASAC at asac@american.edu. Our front desk associate, Allie, will be sure to forward that information to the appropriate DAA, and she will also send confirmation to you that the documentation was received. We do have a 2-week turnaround period of reviewing documentation and the student self-report and then getting back to the student. So we do want to be transparent that if there is a delay between the SAQ and the documentation, we go 2 weeks from the most recent submission of documentation. We just want to take all the information that you have provided us and review it as thoroughly as we can and have plenty of time to be able to do that in order to help determine what's most reasonable for accommodations for the student. So it won't be any more than 2 weeks. Sometimes we'll be able to get in there a little faster, but we can assure you 2 weeks will be our cap. And students can always reach out to the ASAC or their DAA if they haven't heard anything or if they're unsure of what to do next or what steps are next. So I do want to say as well that in documentation, there may be some things that we need more information or something is not elaborated on enough. Or a student may request an accommodation that has no supporting documentation. So just be on the lookout, students, in your AU email. As Melissa said, we may email you and say, hey, thanks for what you've submitted, but I need a little bit more. And we'll be able to provide you the functional impact forms that are in our documentation guidelines that will most likely best answer those questions we have. So we'll be able to send one for your specific diagnosis. That way you can forward over to your provider exactly the form that we need. We also don't have this on our website, but if a provider writes a letter that has all the pieces included within our documentation guidelines, and it's sent to us on official letterhead PDF version, we can accept that as long as it has all the information included in our documentation guidelines. So please feel free to reach out. Sorry.
And it's signed, yes.
Yes, and it has to be signed with provider credentials, yes. So you're welcome to reach out to Melissa or myself with those questions, or you can also email the ASAC directly. So once we have the documentation, step 3, Melissa, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably best to reach out directly to the ASAC so they can give you that guidance. They have all that information. You can also stop in and talk to the front desk too. So don't feel like you're limited to calling or emailing. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Melissa. And you can also set up prospective student meetings with a DAA or a disability consult with your DAA if you've already been assigned one. Thank you, Melissa. So step 3, after we have reviewed the documentation, the SAQ, and have everything that we need, the DAA will email the students AU email address. So their school email address, inviting them in for an intake. And the intake is an opportunity for the DAA to gather the student self-report, hear a little bit more about their history, their functioning, why they're requesting these accommodations. And then we'll be able to come up with a decision on the reasonable accommodations for that student. We also in these meetings discuss some other supports that are available to all students on campus, like the counseling center, academic coaching, some of the peer-assisted tutoring that we have. So we talk about the holistic supports that American can provide students, if that is something that students need. And I also want to share that there are differences between K-12 education and higher education. So we do take that opportunity to discuss this with the student, what those differences are, how it may look at AU, how it's going to differ, and just essentially what to expect when you're coming here into this giant transition from K-12 school.
And I think to add to that, if I may, it is such a huge transition. We so understand that. And one of the elements in that transition is the laws, the disability laws. So the student ends up becoming the driver of their disability related accommodations requests. So we do appreciate and love when parents are supporting, because I think that's wonderful. I know we all do. But we also just really want to help. We're here to support you as a student so you don't feel alone, as you are now the driver of your accommodations, requests, and implementation. So we're here for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Melissa. So Melissa had mentioned earlier the priority dates, the priority deadline dates. So please don't worry about these dates right now. We know that they have both passed. Once the student is registered in the ASAC and, wants to re-request some accommodations like housing for the following year, these deadlines are fairly important. This is most important for ensuring that there's space available or just simply availability for the requested accommodation. For housing deadlines specifically, if a student makes the request after the priority deadline, that's okay. We do take accommodation requests on a rolling basis. It just means that the student, if they are approved, may be placed on a waiting list, or it may not be immediately available. And so that's just something to keep in mind with these priority deadlines. But like I said, we accept accommodation requests anytime throughout the semester. It's also not a one meeting, request everything I'll ever need at one time and then never be able to request again. Students can reach out to their DAA or call the front desk at any time to schedule time with the DAA to request new accommodations or different accommodations. So we engage with the students throughout the year. They can certainly reach out to us at any point in time to get the supports or answer questions, anything like that. All right, so on the next one, so we're going to open up the floor for you guys to ask some general questions, but please keep in mind, we want to respect your privacy and your confidentiality. So try to keep your questions very general. And if you do have specific questions, either to your disability or your student, please feel free to email the ASAC and they can answer your question or forward it over to one of us. So some topics that you could probably ask questions about are, what am I supposed to do with my letter? Or what is an accommodation letter? How do I make these accommodations work in the classroom? And then one thing that I didn't mention before that I wanted to mention, accommodations are not retroactive. So it's important for students to do their best to be on top of registering with the ASAC and getting their accommodations letters to their professors. Because if a student doesn't have an accommodation, doesn't do well on an assessment, gets an accommodation, they can't retake the assessment with that accommodation. So let's be proactive. Students as the driving force.
That's such a wonderful, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, just keep that in mind. That's all.
Yeah, and it's such a wonderful point you made. We get students every year who have such wonderful intentions about, no, I really want to try it without accommodations, or perhaps they're concerned that like a professor in the field they want to work in may look down upon that. But I will assure you, I actually understood that feeling. I was afraid to ask for accommodations when I got my master's here because I thought, oh God, they're gonna think I'm not as capable. And I'm a DA. What's up, what's up, Melissa? And so I can really empathize with that. And I found through A, my own experience here as a student, and B, working for almost 5 years here, working with all the professors, not only is it just a norm for them and expected and respected, it's something that they're perfectly willing to do. The majority of, there's always one person, right? And if that should occur with you where there's an incident, you can always reach out to us. But the majority of folks who work here really are extraordinarily supportive.
Yeah, I do have a question that was sent to me in the chat. Do we have to apply every semester? The answer is no. You don't have to apply for new accommodations every semester, but you will need to request the updated accommodation letter each academic year. So you'll get an email approaching the academic year saying, if you would like your accommodations letter, click here. Takes you to a Qualtrics survey where you just answer who your DAA is, no new accommodations, and then we'll send it right over to you. So you only have to meet for the initial intake meeting. That's the only time you ever have to meet with a DAA. You could never talk to us again throughout your career if you don't want to. So you just need to request the letter every year. You don't have to reapply every semester. Excellent question. Thank you.
And I will amend that. I completely agree. If you don't want to continue, you can just apply to your letter. It does depend. If you don't want to meet with us, something like that after, like in the 3rd year or something, totally fine. You just do exactly what Rebecca said. There are times where we will request to meet with you if you're making a request for, let's say, a new.
About 2 minutes left in this breakout session, about 2 minutes.
That's great timing because we are done. Does anyone else have any questions? You still have time.
2 minutes to be exact. Also, if you don't want to ask questions now or have a personal question, the general ASAC information is on the screen. Please feel free to reach out to them. If Allie cannot answer the question at the front, she'll forward it over to somebody that can certainly answer it for you. You're also welcome to call and schedule a prospective student appointment just to learn more about the process, ask some of those personal questions if you have them. So our information's right there and we look forward to hearing from you. So anybody else? Anybody want to ask a question? Keep Melissa and I on our toes. If not, thank you all so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you and your families here at AU and Move In Week. We wish you the best. Safe travels wherever you are.
Have a wonderful summer, and we're excited to see you in the fall. So.
Absolutely.